ever presented data that left your audience scratching their heads? I've been there. So what if 3,000 posts were created by users per month? Is that good or bad? After many awkward presentations, I had enough. I've been researching ways to make data and statistics more appealing. That's when I stumbled on a genius concept that I wish I knew earlier. In the book, Made to Stick, authors Dan and Cheap Heath reveal a secret to transforming dull statistics into captivating stories. They called it the human scale principle. You see, they believe that statistics aren't inherently helpful. It's the scale and context that make them so. Okay, let me explain. I'm going to take a few examples from the book and how you can apply the human scale principle. Use an analogy. The first example is kind of meta because it's an example from another book. But anyway, in his book, The Eighth Habit, Stephen Covey describes a poll of 23,000 employees drawn from a number of companies and industries on the subject of teamwork. So here are the results. Only 37% said they have a clear understanding of what their organization is trying to achieve and why. Only 1 in 5 were enthusiastic about their teams and their organization's goals. Only 1 in 5 said they had a clear line of sight between their task and their team's organization's goals. Only 15% felt their organization fully enables them to execute key goals. For some people, this sounds bad. But if you're like me, I had nearly fallen asleep by the time they reached the third statistic. In fact, I couldn't recall anything from these statistics after reading them. But then, Covey did a surprising reframe that just blew my mind. He took the same stats and superimposed an analogy related to football. Yeah, I'm referring to soccer in case you're American. You know, it's just that the rest of the world calls it football, so yeah, I'm gonna stick to football, okay? Anyway, this is how the reframe looks like. Only 4 of the 11 players on the field would know which goal is theirs. Only 2 of the 11 would care, and only 2 of that 11 would know which position they play and know exactly what they're supposed to do. And all but 2 players, in some way, will be competing against their own team members rather than their opponent. Both of these lists are based on the same set of numbers, but why is it the second list more interesting? The football analogy generates a human context for the statistics. Our brains can't help but imagine the players doing silly things like scoring the wrong goalposts, and how could players not understand their positions in the team? That's just stupid. The smaller scale of a football team is also easier to comprehend when compared to a corporation. The impact of each person is amplified when presented on a smaller scale, so it's very clear that only the best sports team with the best teamwork can win. Covey's point is that corporations should operate like teams, but unfortunately, they don't. Humanizing the statistics maximizes the impact of his message. Use different measurements. Let's look at how the human scale principle can apply to a bit more mundane but important topic. Figuring out if a tech upgrade is worth it. Cisco had to decide whether to add a wireless network for its employees. The cost of maintaining this upgrade was estimated at $500 per year per employee, which is expensive when you consider other benefits like dental or vision insurance. Unless they reframe it as an investment instead of a benefit. As long as the company can make at least $501 of value back from each employee every year, it's worth it. The tricky part though is figuring out how to quantify and measure it. That's when one employee said, hey, if you believe you can increase an employee's productivity by 1 to 2 minutes a day, you've paid back the cost of the wireless. Now on this scale, it's easier for our brains to assess. We can easily simulate scenarios where an employee can save a few minutes from wireless access. For example, sending a request for a forgotten document during a critical meeting, which I kind of done that before, attending meetings remotely while on a business trip, providing asynchronous updates anytime, anywhere. Getting executive approval is much easier with these time-saving examples compared to presenting the $501 return on investment. So when all else fails, play around with different units of measurements and see how that changes your story. Subvert expectations. Now, let me ask you, which animal is more likely to kill you? A shark or a deer? Type out the answer in the comment section below. It's okay, I'll wait. Yep. Ready for the answer? What if I told you that the deer is more likely to kill you? In fact, it's 300 times more likely to kill you via collision with your car. This statistics was published by the Florida Museum of Natural History, and it's effective because it's unexpected. I mean, it's just absurd to think that Bambi is more dangerous than Jaws. And humor is a nice antidote to the fear generated by shark attack stories. The juxtaposition between the deer and the shark also taps into the audience beliefs. People know how much fear they have of deers when they're driving. Zero. We don't cancel our evening plans just because of deers lurking on the roadside. So if you don't fear deers, despite the fact that they are 300 times more deadly, why should we fear sharks? This is an example of relating numbers to people's misconceptions. Visualize the size. Art Silverman had a difficult task spreading an important health message to the public. He was working for the Center for Science in the Public Interest, also known as CSPI, a non-profit group that educates the public about nutrition. Now, their research lab had found that a bag of popcorn contained 37 grams of saturated fat, which far exceeds the recommended daily intake of 20 grams set by the United States Department of Agriculture, also known as USDA. Turns out, the culprit was the coconut oil used in making the popcorn. But hold up. So what? Is 37 grams of fat bad? If so, how bad is it? This is the problem. This is the part that Art Silverman and the CSPI needed to solve and change in their messaging to make it clear to the public how dangerous this is. So Art Silverman and the CSPI put those 37 grams of fat into context. They laid out a full buffet of greasy food for the television cameras, an entire day's worth of unhealthy eating displayed on the table. All that saturated fat stuffed into one single bag of popcorn. The story caught the attention of CBS, NBC, ABC, and even CNN. And in fact, even Leno and Letterman cracked jokes about fat-soaked popcorn. And headline writers? They trotted out some doozies. For example, popcorn gets R rating, lights, action, cholesterol. Theater popcorn is double feature of fat. And guess what? Soon after that, most movie chains announced they would stop using popcorn. Soon after that, most movie chains announced they would stop using coconut oil in their popcorn. As you can see, throwing a list of numbers and percentages might make you look smart, especially in your presentation, but your audience might feel lost. Data and statistics are powerful, but only if you are able to make your audience understand them in a relatable way. But this doesn't answer another question. How do you explain complex technical topics in a simple way? Watch this next to learn how to make your presentation easy to understand for non-tech people.